Okay, Mr. Chairman, we are live.
All right, I'll call the meeting of the Business Assistant Council to order. The attendance is identical to that for the Industrial Development Agency, which we just completed. And our first order of business would be to review and approve the board minutes from the January 14th, 2021 meeting. These seem to be very brief, but does anybody have any discussion or questions about those minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have that? Do I have such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Hardy, okay. Is there anyone who opposes? If not, the motion is granted. We also have the finance report, and I'll ask Robin to highlight that, especially anything that she thinks should be drawn to our attention, which is unusual.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, we started out the month with $1,487,000 in cash and invested funds. Had some interest brought in on our loans and a little bit of bank interest. We brought our normal principal payments in for the month and very little expenses going out. We ended up the month with $1,516,000 between the cash and the invested funds. And on the next page is the loan report, and everyone's with our typical, doing well. There's the ones that have been running late, and everything's how we usually, or normally are. There's nothing out of the ordinary.
Prizes. Okay. Are there questions or discussion concerning the financial report? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the report as presented. Do I have such a motion?
I'll move that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Does anyone oppose? If not, the motion is granted. And I understand we have a guest who is going to give us some information about the Dream Lake thing, which was referred to earlier in the IDA meeting. Maybe you could introduce him, Jim?
Sure. Before I do that, up on the screen is again a summary of the project, but in this case, it's a summary of their request for funding. When you cut to the chase, they're looking for a $200,000 loan as part of this expansion project from the BAC that would be structured in such a way that it would be amortized over 20 years at a 5% interest rate that would balloon after 10 years. The BAC, of course, would take a third position, in this case, on a mortgage on the property, and a second interest position behind Community Bank and all business assets of Jardin and Calcana Properties, the two involved LLCs on this project. So normally when we receive a loan application, there's a cost that we incur by engaging a professional underwriter to review the application and do the credit analysis. When we partner up with a bank, like in this case where we're partnering up with Community Bank, the banks are very gracious in sharing their credit analysis with us, which saves the borrower and or the BAC some anticipated expenses because of that. So we're thankful for Community Bank and Hans to be involved with this project. They're the lead entity for financing, and they have brought us along as a way of making up some gap that was needed. So with that, I will like to introduce Hans Kunze. I think everyone, for the most part, knows Hans. He's got a very good reputation as a commercial and ag lender here in Wyoming County. And it's been involved with this project like we have going on probably 2 years now. So Hans, if you would provide an overview, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay, well, thank you everyone and for having me join you today so I could maybe give you a little more direct, detailed analysis of the project and overview. And I really do appreciate your agency being there, because I can't think of a more perfect situation for your agency to be of assistance to a project for a deserving, hardworking couple, furthering our sales tax base in Wyoming County and doing a phenomenal job with their tourism business. Just to back up on one thing, it appears that it's a third mortgage, but the 200,000 would actually technically be a fifth mortgage. Now that sounds kind of crazy, but I just assumed address. I think that's kind of one of the most important points here. Whether it's a third or fifth, that's not as important as what the total dollars are. But this project started at least 2 years ago, and we're getting close to thinking about a closing, and then Patty started to realize that some of these costs were just underestimated. A couple things were not planned on. The NYSEG cost, for example, was not even figured in for a while. NYSEG apparently hadn't gotten back to them. They kind of thought that maybe they were going to take care of some of the utilities themselves, but that was not the case. So time's gone by, costs have gone up, and so we had to stop the project. It didn't start, but we had to regroup, and that's when IDA, or not the IDA, the WAC, it's called BAC, Wyoming County BAC. Their help is what's going to make this deal possible. The first mortgage out there, just to give you a quick rundown, is an existing low doc SBA guarantee that we put out there in 2015 when they bought the campground from the Barnetts. The Barnetts ran the campground for many years, but in their later years, I think there was some marital issues, and they weren't into the campground like you need to be. And so it was an opportunity for the Jarnotts to purchase it. So we have this balance of 222 out there right now. The new project involves $767,000. 240 of it is to refinance a portion of the Barnett loan, about 2/3, 3/4. Barnett's held a second mortgage behind us. Originally in the plan was to take out Barnett completely, but doing the numbers with the SBA 504 program, which is being administered through Pursuit Lending in Albany, it made sense to leave about $72,000 of Barnett's loan out there. So whereas the original plan was to get Barnett out of the way completely, this plan leaves about $72,000 out there. Barnett will have to subordinate his position to all of the new construction money, but not subordinate to Wyoming County BAC. So that's the reason there's another mortgage position in the mix. So as a summary, the first mortgage is 222. The second mortgage is 767, which eventually, with a 504 program, that's 767 after completion of construction, gets split up in the 504 program, where Community Bank will have 449,000 of that, and Pursuit Lending with the 504 program will take 318 of that. So then comes Barnett, 72,000, and then comes Wyoming County BAC with 200,000. So yes, it puts Wyoming County BAC at the back of the bus. I discussed that with Jim quite a long time ago, if that's generally acceptable, and he said likely, but it all depends on how strong the package is and so forth. And I'm really pleased to tell you that after a 2-year delay on this project, because of the $200,000 extra costs that are involved, the campground has performed very, very well over the last 2 years. They've made they did well before, well enough that we were confident in doing the project, but now because of the extra cost, there's going to be more debt service. But despite that, the cash flow looks very good, and the projected additional revenues from these 50 more campsites is going to help dramatically. I've spent a great deal of time meticulously getting into the weeds on the projections that Patty came up with. And the more I worked on them in detail, the more confident I became and realized that we were being conservative in a couple different areas. For example, the 50 new campsites that they're putting out, it's 45 campsites, but half of them will be seasonal campsites, which means people park their RVs there all summer and they pay $2,200 for the season. The other half of those campsites will remain what they call weekend campsites or transient. You can imagine with transient weekenders, so forth, the revenue per campsite is more like $3,500. But the seasonal is handy too. So you need a good mix. But just to give you an idea of the demand, all the campers now for 2 years have heard that they're planning on an expansion. And the campers themselves and the friends of theirs all want to be in this campground. And for the 23 available seasonal sites, they have a waiting list of 80 different campers. Now, are they all sitting there ready right this minute? Maybe not. Maybe by now some have found somewhere else, but the demand is extremely strong. If for some reason the transient weekend campers aren't using the 22 other sites, they can easily switch over to more seasonal. But that is not likely the case. Weekend after weekend, their reservations have been through the roof. They're opening it up. I think they may be just starting to open up the reservations for non-customers, non-repeat customers. But it's phenomenal, the demand that's there. So these 45 additional campsites will be utilized, and we did figure that in the projection, but we used a lower revenue number for these campsites. We did not use 3,500. And the reason that you like some of the transient campers, they're the ones that are more on vacation. They're the ones that come with money to spend. They'll use the snack shop. They'll go buy all kinds of things in the store. They'll have friends come over who have to pay a fee. And that $3,500 that they take in for camping fees is just part of it. All those other those other add-ons are significant. So Patty and Keith have done a phenomenal job at fixing up the campground over the years. And another thing they did is they cleaned up the some of their camper personnel. They had to get rid of some that were causing some trouble or not going with the rules and so forth. And the more they did that, the better things got, because more and more people had referrals of really good new campers. So it's a really neat success story that's unfolding here. And the 2 years that have gone by due to the delay have actually been very good to see them operate and follow through with their continued increase in profitability and cash flow. So the total amount of outstanding debt that would be ahead of the $200,000 is about $1,060,000. And again, 72 of that is going to be Mr. Barnett. Has not said so on paper, but he's graciously verbally told me that he would subordinate a portion of his mortgage, or if we didn't pay him off. I think he's also willing to take a proportionally lower payment, which is good for cash flow. However, Patty's intent is to pay him off as fast as possible. And so even though his 72 is ahead of BAC, I don't think it's going to be there very long. Another thing that happened is Patty and Keith lived in their own home on Snyder Road, and they sold that home recently, and they have moved their residence to the campground. By selling that home, they have $100,000 in backup cash on hand. Now they kind of want to keep it for operating the campground, though their checking account is pretty good shape at the moment as well. But some of it's because of deposits that were made on seasonal campsites. But I feel good knowing that they have this little nest egg to back up this project as well, and that they plan on getting rid of the Barnett mortgage as soon as they can. I've cautioned them not to use up their money too soon, because we need to make sure we get through construction and so forth. But we have a really nice situation here. But again, I and Patty are asking for your assistance here to make this thing work.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
Judge Dad, I would just like to say that they have run a great operation. Patty's been down to the town office quite a bit, talking over the project that she wanted to do. And I also know through the whole COVID thing, she was worked closely with our public health, with Steve Perkins, and did everything to the letter that needed to be done to be able to open up as soon as she could, and followed all the regulations. I mean, that's just the way they are. They do everything by the book, really. I have every confidence in Patty and Keith in this project.
I don't think it needs to be said that this is all personally guaranteed as well, even though I'm not exactly
Right.
sure what the structure is.
Correct. Yes.
Judge, I'd just like to say that Patty is Jim Daniels' daughter. She's lived in Wyoming County her whole life. Anybody knows Jim Daniels, he's a worker, and the apple didn't fall far from the tree, because I've known her since she was a little girl, and she's a hard worker. And I've been to the campground before they bought it, and the transformation is remarkable. And And I have no reservations about moving forward with this at all. And the other point is, as Hans mentioned, he meticulously studied this. And anybody who knows Hans, there's no leaf unturned. So I'm all about it, Hans.
One thing I was going to mention in the cash flow, the historical income and operating expenses, they have this expense for repairs like $20,000. It's like, where are all these repairs going? Because, you know, my point is the cash flow still is good enough to have $20,000 of repairs and still be positive. And with all the new construction, and part of this project includes rebuilding the existing bathhouse in the campground. And so it's only going to enhance the existing campground as well and cut down on repair type items.
Jim, this is addressed to you. Would it be wise for us to make this conditioned upon the approval of the IDA portion that you're going to have the hearing on?
I think
Doesn't make any difference.
that's fine. Kevin, you got any thoughts on that?
I don't know that it matters either way. I would assume that when the mortgage financing is closing, that we're also going to be closing on the IDA pilot at the same time. So, you know, I think one question I would have is just one of timing in terms of when the construction is going to be underway and when we should be looking forward to closing on the transaction. But I would do it as one, Jim, everything at once.
It'd be more efficient that way.
Yeah. So
That's what I was driving at. But anyway. All right, any further discussion?
yeah, I still have something. I just jogged my memory here. Yeah, when we do the closing, we'll be taking all the mortgages at the closing before construction starts, but it'll all be set up so that at the end, when construction is complete and the C of O is in hand, that's when Pursuit Lending with the 504 program finally puts their $318,000 in to reduce our construction loan. So I'm thinking, this isn't in the package anywhere. It just hit me today that maybe we could make the loan a little longer with an interest only period to coincide with the bank's interest only period, because we will need the money during construction, but we're not starting regular amortized payments until about 12 months out. So that's something that I should have thought of that and mentioned it to Jim ahead of time, but it just hit me that maybe you don't do interest only for a while, but that's what we're doing during our construction project.
I'm not sure that the monies can be used for construction. Just a question.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, maybe they can be. It's a question of eligibility, if you can use it for construction costs. But I don't know that we put money in on the front end of a project like that. You know, we'd have to do lien waivers and set it up as a construction loan, just the same way the bank would. It's just a different type of loan
Mm-hmm.
from what we usually paper. That's all. If I understand Hans correctly.
So
Yeah.
you mean instead of us paying for equipment or supplies, materials, that type of thing?
Yes.
So if we tie into a construction loan package, you're thinking that we would have to say we're part of a construction loan?
Yeah, you would structure it as a construction loan just the same way the construction lender would. Otherwise, those dollars potentially are not recoverable out of the project if the project does not finish.
What if there's equipment or materials she needs to purchase ahead of time? Can we show it going to that cost?
You could do that, but again, your collateral here is going to be behind the bank. With the project being liened, the issue is if the project gets liened by contractors because things aren't getting paid, that creates problems for you if you just throw the money on the table. And that's why, when you do construction financing, you would ask for lien waivers and give draws against it. Otherwise, the money's at risk.
Could I suggest that the motion simply state that this would be subject to the approval of our the structure would be subject to the approval of IDA council. And you can worry about that when once we get the thing approved. And that way you can structure it whatever you way. Because I'm sure you can do it, just a matter of how you want to do it.
Yeah, I just think it's important for the board to understand the nuance, that's all.
Most of what is being spent isn't going to be for personal property type tangible assets like that. It's pretty much, so the materials that will be spent, if we need to call it the funds as materials, we're talking building materials for the 2 bathhouses, all kinds of electrical and plumbing supplies, and all kinds of gravel will be hauled in for the driveways and so forth. So there will be a lot of supplies, but the primary collateral for this loan in the long run will not be relying on any kind of personal property. The collateral will be the mortgage. I think that the property is going to do phenomenally well and appraise very well. And then appraise even down the road, will appraise even better as more and more of the cash flow as this loan seasons and so forth. But the collateral is really the real estate and not so much all the lawnmowers and all those things.
Well, I'm content to leave it to Kevin to structure this so that we get the optimum protection for the BAC on this amount. And, this is something that's probably going to have to be worked out as you go forward.
Yeah. In order to close with the SBA 504 program, they will want to be sure that they have obviously written approval from BAC and that the funds will be available to use for construction, because if we sure don't want to wait till the end of construction, because they need the money. And so we definitely need the money up front. As far as the construction line that we will have, we will be doing the full gamut of construction monitoring. We will be hiring an outside firm, even though it's only 2 bathhouses and the rest of the work is pretty much underground utilities and driveways and a pond construction. We are hiring third-party consultants to monitor everything, including, each advance. We're going to follow it to the T as far as lien waivers, running out the title several times before we make an advance, and extreme caution. So
Hans, can we piggyback on that?
Pardon?
Can we piggyback on that process?
Yeah, I would think so. If you had, suppose the WAC loan is like set up for the 200,000 with a construction phase, mirroring our construction phase. We have it set up for 12 months of construction.
Yep.
Now, construction is really supposed to be done pretty much by July, if not sooner, because they plan on using these sites this summer. But there's still, once construction is done, you still need, there's other steps to take to get the 504 bonding set up and so forth. So I was cautioned by Pursuit Lending to make sure that the construction period is long enough. So we went with a year, but it'll be less if everything is done. So maximum of a year, interest only, and then converting to the amortized payments. So we could do it so that certain advances are made by WAC and in the same line with our construction monitoring. And I could share all that with Jim all the way through the project, so that full disclosure everywhere that we're monitoring everything.
I think that would be very helpful.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion? Do I hear a motion to approve the loan request contingent upon approval of the disbursement and form of the loan? The approval, I say, of our attorney on the conditions of dispersal of, let me start again. Perhaps you could help me with the language. Give me something general I can deal with here, Kevin.
All right, I'm going to try. It's not that easy. I think what we're looking for is a motion to approve the loan to the borrower contingent upon the structuring by BAC Council of an appropriate disbursement and structure for the actual loan itself. How's that?
That's wonderful. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
First, I can't make the motion, Judge. I only stated it. Someone has to make it.
I think she just made it.
I'll make the motion, yep. Thank you.
All right, Jim Hardy seconding.
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone who does not approve? Okay, the motion is granted. Do we have other business, Jim?
No, sir.
All right, our next meeting would be March 11th, 2021 to follow the IDA meeting. And do I have a motion then to adjourn?
Move it, Judge,
Yes, sir.
Judge Chairman.
I'll second it.
I think Joe moved it.
Okay, very good. Is there anybody who doesn't want to adjourn? Hearing nobody, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
And this
Thank
is
you.
Hans. I thank you all